Today we're going to be talking about Demon Slayer Season 3, the Swordsmith Village arc. Is it the worst arc of Demon Slayer so far? Is it the worst season? I've seen a lot of people online saying that this season is weaker than maybe the first two seasons, which I kind of tend to agree with. I think it's still a really strong season. I think it's still a really good anime, to be fair. Like, this season holds up pretty well in comparison to the others. Does it hit the heights of the other two? Maybe not. I think the reason is the expectations for this anime are just through the roof. I think this is one of the most, if not the most popular anime now of all time. Like, it definitely rivals stuff like One Piece and Naruto for being the most popular and most well-known anime. And I think it is this next generation's kind of, like, when you talk about the big three from like the 2000s, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece, and I guess some people would include Dragon Ball. When you talk about that, I think this is that for this next generation. Like, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Attack on Titan are probably the three that are kind of the next big three, if you will. I think rightfully so. Now, let's talk about Season 3. Did it meet my expectations? To be fair, I didn't even know that Season 3 was airing. I've been kind of out of the loop. I've been doing other stuff. I've been watching other stuff. So I didn't know that Season 3 had started. I'd seen that the final episode got released, so I had to go watch all the episodes in a row. And luckily, one good thing about the Demon Slayer arcs is they're pretty short. Most animes go for a 24 episode season. Luckily for me, Demon Slayer doesn't do that, although they have a weird structure where they kind of do a long episode for the first one and a long episode for the last one. It's interesting that it's different, but it's kind of just like combining two or three anime episodes into one anyway, so not really that different. In terms of the season, I actually think it starts out really strong. It shows us kind of the aftermath of the last arc, the Entertainment District arc. It shows all the upper demons left meeting, and we get to see kind of what's in store and what's coming, right? What the protagonists are going to have to fight in the future seasons, which I think is really cool. Some of the demons look pretty intimidating. I'm not somebody who's read the manga past the anime point, so I don't know what happens, but some of them look really intimidating. Although it does kind of set a weird precedent where you know they're going to be fighting kind of the shittier looking demons in this season, but I still think the demons weren't that bad. One thing about this season is it doesn't really use the same characters apart from Tanjiro and Nezuko. You're kind of introduced to a slew of new characters. So in this season there is no Inosuke, which is kind of disappointing considering he's one of the best characters. There's no Crybaby Zenitsu or whatever his name is, which that to me was fine. Although the other fucking one of the demons is a bit of a crybaby, it's nowhere near as annoying as Zenitsu was. And of course, they introduced the Wind Hashira and the Love Hashira. I think those are the most interesting characters in the anime. Is either the Hashiras or the upper demons. I don't think like the main protagonist cast are that interesting, apart from Inosuke. Like, in most animes, the protagonist is by far the best character. If you think of something like Attack on Titan, I think Eren Yeager. I mean, some people would say Levi, but I think Eren Yeager might be the best character in that by far. And then you look at stuff like, I think Naruto's probably the best character in Naruto, and so on and so forth. Most of the time, the protagonist is one of the better characters, or at least they're on par with some of the other best characters. In Demon Slayer, I think it's one of those where Tanjiro is a decent protagonist, but he's by no means the most interesting character in the anime. So let's talk about some of the new characters. Were they as good as some of the older characters? The Wind Hashira, I think, is actually a pretty good character. They give us quite a decent bit of back. For some reason, I think he suffered some kind of injury and he has amnesia. He doesn't remember who he is, and Tanjiro kind of helps him remember who he is, which helps him defeat Upper Demon 5, I believe he kills. I think he's a pretty cool character. They give us a good bit of portion of backstory, so you kind of feel a bit more invested in his story. Then we have the Love Hashira, who we don't really get too much on her backstory except for the fact that she's meant to be this weird girl who eats too much and is really strong and has weird colored hair, which is why she couldn't find a husband, and that's why she became a demon slayer. I mean, it's pretty prototypical backstory stuff. They really don't give us a lot on her backstory. She's not really that involved as the Wind Hashira. I think she's an okay character. She doesn't annoy me in any way. She's fine. Then we get a new younger Demon Slayer called Genya, who we've seen in previous seasons. I think we see him in season 1, where they do like the Demon Slayer trials or the course to get into being a Demon Slayer. We see him in like that, but we haven't seen him since. His name's Genya. He has a cool sawn-off shotgun. That might be the best part of this season. This guy has a fucking sawn-off shotgun to shoot demons with. It's hilarious. I don't know why I find that hilarious. He is an interesting character, although he kind of feels like a discount bargain bin version of Inosuke. It's like, did we really need him? Could we not just let Inosuke have gone on this journey instead of Genya? But his brother's a Hashira, and he's trying to become a Hashira himself, but he can't use breathing techniques or something. He's kind of like Nezuko, where he has this demon, where he's kind of like got this demon power, but they don't really explore it and they don't really explain it to us. So I don't really know what the hell's going on with him. He's just kind of there for the vibes at that point, because even in the final battle, he doesn't really do much. He kind of just watches. And then we have the two main villains, which is Upper Rank 5 and Upper Rank 4. I feel like in the previous seasons, the demons felt really, really strong. Like they were undefeatable in a way, right? I remember the spider guy, he was so strong, they really struggled to beat him. And then in season 2, they all were basically on the brink of death when they were fighting upper demon 6. But then upper rank 5 and upper rank 4, they just don't really compare in strength, or it doesn't seem like they compare in strength. But I know it's like the characters have moved on to another level of strength, so maybe the strength comparison is a lot more close than it was in previous seasons. It's just, you don't really feel the threat of the characters, and they seemingly get defeated a lot easier than the other characters would have. But upper rank 4, he's literally just some rip-off genie. Like, he lives in a pot, and he's meant to be some art fiend. You know, he loves making art. Like, he literally could be an SCP or some shit. Like, he's really kind of weird. He has a really annoying laugh that he keeps doing, which is it's actually kind of funny. Just the voice acting is pretty good for it. He is not really very threatening because his whole arc is literally him fighting the Wind Hashira. He traps the Wind Hashira in a water bubble, and then the rest of his presence in the anime is him trying to stop this guy from sharpening a sword. That's literally his entire arc. It's him trying to stop Tanjiro's swordsmith from fucking sharpening a sword. That's it. My man's in the fucking full-on focus mode too, the sword sharpening guy. He's getting beat the shit out of him. He's still sharpening the sword. It's fucking weird. I think they didn't really explore upper rank 5 very much. He was kind of just a side demon, but we didn't get absolutely any lore on him or anything. He was just there. And then in the end, he kind of gets, the Wind Hashira kind of just shits on him. He just kind of destroys him in the end. It was pretty easy for him. I guess the main villain of this is upper rank 4. I think his concept of his demon is pretty cool, that he can split himself into all the emotions. It's kind of like the Full Metal Alchemist thing where the homunculus guy just splits all of his sins off into different monsters. It's kind of basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing, and Tanjiro, Genya, and Nezuko are just fighting them for the most part. And then at some point, Tanjiro's winning, and they're winning, and then the next thing they're getting shit on. I think this season was kind of used as an introduction to certain concepts and powers, and trying to like bring it all into the next arc where there's gonna obviously be a lot more happening. I think they're trying to build Tanjiro up a little bit with his powers. He's got a new sword, which I believe is like the greatest demon slayer of all time, whatever, Yorichi or whatever his name was, his sword. I think Tanjiro has found his sword and they're gonna craft it for him and he's gonna use that. They don't really talk too much. There isn't a lot of development for Tanjiro in this in terms of his powers. In this, Tanjiro's powers aren't at all developed on. Like in the previous ones, the first one we kind of learned that he has got some special power. In the second season, it was him trying to use the sun breathing technique, but he was struggling, he couldn't do it. Now he can use the sun breathing technique. He doesn't really use it that much, and yeah, they don't really give him a boost in power. The only potential boost in power he has is that he's getting a different sword, which he hasn't even got yet, which he used to cut the demon's head off. But yeah, like I said, upper rank 4 wasn't really that intimidating either. Like, I think his final form was cool. He kind of turned into like some weird Hashirama with jutsu guy. He's just banging drums, and then like these wooden snakes are trying to eat you. It was interesting. He's an interesting villain, but again, he had no backstory. I think it would be cool if the demons also got a backstory. How did they become demons? Who are they? Why are they demons? Like all that. Like, can you give us a little bit of that? I don't know how it is in the manga, but it gives us no depth to the characters. I think like this season could have done with a few extra episodes to give us a bit more depth on maybe the demons, or give us a bit more of a rounded story, because it does feel at times like there were portions that were just maybe cut out. You know what I mean? Like there were times where it felt like it was paced a little slow, maybe in like episode 2. But then when you move on throughout, it feels like the pacing is just increased so much, and maybe we're skipping a few things, and the battle comes very quickly. Like it was very quick that the upper rank demons show up, and then you still have a bunch of episodes left, and you're like, well, now this fight is gonna last throughout the rest of the season, right? And you're like, how much more could they potentially do with this, you know? Like I said, the upper rank demons didn't really feel as intimidating as maybe in previous seasons. I think the animation and everything was fine. Apparently some people were complaining about like CGI. I'm not somebody who really notices bad CGI or really good CGI unless it's very blatant. Like The Flash, I noticed that shit, but in this, it was fine. It was good enough for me. I didn't really notice it. Also, we kind of get a little bit of Nezuko development, I guess, but to me, Nezuko is the least interesting of like the 4 main protagonists, right? I think the more interesting dynamic was between the 3 demon slayers who went through the trials together, and then they were basically fighting demons together, and then they've all now split off. I'm not too disappointed that Zenitsu was gone, but Inosuke was one of the funniest and best parts of the anime, and he's literally OD in like episode 1, and it was a little disappointing not to have him. I really hope that like the next arc is not like we're going on some Zenitsu adventure or some shit, bro. I can't do that, or we're just going on an Inosuke by himself adventure. Hopefully they all come together a little bit more, but I don't know. Maybe I should read the manga. Who knows? Overall, what would I give this season? I still give this season a solid 8 out of 10. It was a very, very good anime season by comparison to most things. I would still say Demon Slayer is the #1 anime to watch if you're new to anime. I would always recommend that people go and jump in with this. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the new season of Demon Slayer. And yeah, that's all I got for today. I'll see you all in the next one.